Hello, everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. The Oklahoma Legislature has approved additional emergency funding to address the widespread and severe drought in Oklahoma. Joining us now is Dr. Amy Hagerman, our Ag Policy Specialist. Amy, why don't you just get us up to speed?
So this has really come in two pieces. The first part was $3 million set aside in mid-September from our Emergency Drought Fund. Some people might remember this from the 2013 drought whenever it was originally set up. The second piece more recently is the $20 million that Governor Stitt just signed that will go into additional initiatives. So this first piece, this first $3 million is what we're already hearing about the Emergency Drought Commission putting into place for these water initiatives.
So let's talk about this first $3 million and kind of what the dates are and what's included with that part of the program.
So there are many initiatives that have been under discussion by the Emergency Drought Commission, but this first piece is focused on water, drilling wells, additional pipelines, piping water to livestock, setting up these heavy-duty areas around stock tanks where you get a lot of traffic and can really do some damage to the ground around it. Also pond clean-out. I think we'll have a lot of producers that are interested in pond clean-out. When ponds are empty is actually the ideal time to be proactive to clean out the pond. So these projects will focus around water initiatives for producers around the state. The deadline will be December 2nd to get applications into the local conservation district for the projects. Producers can actually start applying now for these different initiatives.
And this is a cost share program, the way I understand it, and each county of the 77 counties will get a specific amount?
So initially, $33,000, an even split of the $3 million, has gone to each of the 77 counties. They'll take applications to identify projects in those counties up to $7,500 or 80% of the cost of the project at most. Those can be adjusted a little bit at the county level. So as with so many of these programs, it really pays to have the conversation with your county office on exactly what those limits will be within that county. Then producers, they'll do it on a first come, first served basis for different projects in the county. If we have a county where the projects don't actually add up to the total of $33,000, that money can go back into a central pool and be redistributed to counties that have had a higher demand for the program.
So now we've heard about this extra $20 million. There was additional action by the legislature and the governor last week to set aside these funds. What do you know about that portion?
So we don't have details from the Emergency Drought Commission on how they're going to spend the additional $20 million at this time. But some of the things that have been mentioned are, for example, depending on what the demand is from this initial $3 million, they may put more of the $20 million into water projects. Also, something that's been mentioned is additional transportation support for feed and water for livestock in these drought-stricken counties. Now, it's important to remember that these programs are designed to be complementary to federal drought programs. All of the federal drought programs are still in play, so it would be putting in an application for one or both, depending on what your needs are on your operation.
So sorting this out in your county or in your conservation district, the best bet would probably be to start at the county extension office with your ag educator.
Absolutely. They're going to be up to speed on what these different programs are and also what your operation looks like. So you can have that conversation about your biggest needs, the area where you need aid on your operation, and they can sort out which federal or state programs can help them address those.
Okay, Amy, thanks for the information, and we will see you back here on SUNUP again very soon. As we know, drought can present a number of challenges, including the need for testing for livestock, water, and forage. For more on a new program from OSU Extension offering discounts, here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare and Dr. Dave Lawman.
Curtis, this year, as the drought has continued, people started off the year short of hay, and they've continued to have to bale, Forage Resources to get at least a nucleus of cows through the winter. In fact, there's a few people having to start feeding hay now. Of course, a lot of people have already depopulated and sold a few, if not a lot, of cows. But with the limited forage harvested, forage available to get folks through the fall and the winter. You know, folks are really struggling to find those forage resources. I had a call from a Noble County producer here just late last week, and his comment was that, you know, we're seeing folks offer milo or sorghum stubble for sale. We're considering baling soybeans, failed soybeans for hay. And then we had another call from another producer that was curious about the opportunity to either graze or bale a failed cotton crop. And so there's just going to be a lot of different hay products on the market this year. And folks just need to be very in tune with, you know, the knowledge required to understand the value of that forage to begin with, and secondly, an appropriate supplementation program, if one's required, to make sure that those cows stay in good body condition, you know, and can be productive the following year. We sure don't want a bunch of thin cows next spring.
And one of the important things about, you know, finding out that value of that hay is testing.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and you know, just because there's Bermuda grass hay for sale doesn't mean it's going to be 8% protein and 55% TDN. This year, there's going to be some, you know, maybe some, let's say, non-grazed areas that are not traditionally harvested that were baled this year in September, might not have been baled for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
And wouldn't, you know, we've talked about this a few weeks ago about testing for toxins in the hay as well. Is that going to be a problem going into the winter, given, you know, baling hay that's from Forage Resources that's not usually baled?
Of course. You know, producers need to be knowledgeable of what forage types are, we'll call it nitrate provocative. Okay, if you know what those types of forages are, sorghum sudan is probably the most common one we see here in Oklahoma, but there are other forages too, and they need to know that when they purchase that forage, or before they purchase it, the best thing to do is have a nitrate test so they know what they've got.
There is some good news. OSU Extension is offering some resources to help producers this year when it comes to hay testing.
Yeah, I mean, hay testing generally is not terribly expensive, but the test that we have here at our laboratory at OSU that gives you protein and energy, which everybody needs both of those this year to really understand what quality of forage you have available. Both protein and energy, that normally costs $14. With this discount, with this opportunity, it's only going to cost $4 a sample. And that's a tremendous bargain. Yeah, I believe the nitrate test is only $2 a sample, so I mean, yeah, don't let the cost of the forage test be a deterrent to having, you know, more knowledge to make a good decision.
In regards to actual hay testing, producers can always contact their local extension office, and county educators can assist them with making those management strategies.
They can be very helpful, and this year is more important than ever because, you know, those extension educators know the forages being harvested in their area. They know the costs, you know, commodities available. They also know how to help people with that forage test. They know how to help people with diet evaluation using our software program. So they can be a lot of help in terms of helping them make good decisions.
Alrighty, thanks Dave. Dr. Dave Lawman, Extension Beef Cattle Specialist here at Oklahoma State University. And if you'd like some information on the discounts that OSU Extension's offering for hay testing, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
OSU Extension supports Oklahoma farmers and ranchers with mental health resources and programming. If you or someone you know is experiencing mental health challenges, call the Comprehensive Crisis Response Lifeline at 988 or go online to the OSU Extension website dealing with farm stress. For more information about local resources, suicide prevention, finances, disaster recovery, and more. We have links to both of these websites at sunup.okstate.edu.
Hello, Wes Lee here with your weekly Mesonet weather report. The fall is my favorite time of year with the cool mornings and warm afternoons. Even though the current temperatures feel comfortable, they are continuing the warmer than normal pattern we have had for quite a while now. For example, the temperature map from Tuesday shows that highs were mostly in the mid to upper 80s, except for the Panhandle. This would be about 7 or 8 degrees above the long-term average. In fact, higher than normal seems to be the new norm lately. This graph shows the number of days that we have been above normal in blue versus the days below normal in orange. The time frame is from May 1st through Tuesday of this past week. It shows that in more than 75% of the days we came in hotter than the 15-year average. Normally this time of year, each day should be about 1/2 of a degree cooler than the day before. On October 10th, the average statewide high temperature should be around 76.5 degrees. On the 11th, the average falls to 76, and so on. We should continue leaning above normal temperatures next week, as shown by the browns on this forecast map from the National Weather Service. Now Gary will show us just how fast the drought is expanding.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, unfortunately, that drought continues to accelerate and intensify across the state of Oklahoma. Let's get right to the new map, whether we want to or not, and take a look. Yeah, this is a really nasty looking map. So now I would say the majority of the state is covered by extreme to exceptional drought. Again, a lot of red and a lot of dark red. So we do have areas that are under the moderate to severe drought. Those are getting fewer and far between, though, as we go forward. How dry has it been? Well, as we go forward the last 30 days, at least as we go through that period from September 4th forward, that's the driest such period on record for at least 100 years in the state of Oklahoma, based on the statewide average. So if we look at this 30-day rainfall accumulation map through October 4th, that rainfall you see on there is drier or lesser than any of that similar period of the last 30 days as you go back through the Dust Bowl, through the 50s drought, through all of those bad droughts of our past. Just a really bad situation as we've gone through the last few months. And that shows up on the percent of normal rainfall map for that 30-day period. Lots of single digits across the state, lots of zeros, 0% of normal rainfall for that September 4th through October 3rd period. And until we get rain, this is going to continue to be the driest such period. And we talk about that flash drought starting on June 11th when the rains went away and the heat came on and has basically stayed on the whole time. This is also the driest such period on record, going back at least 100 years to 1921 across the state of Oklahoma. So you see these rainfall totals, you average those together, it's never been drier over that time frame. Now we take a look at the departure from normal over that 120-day-ish period. We see deficits ranging from 2 to 3 inches out across western and parts of south central Oklahoma, to a large area of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, greater than 10 inches below normal over that time frame. So again, that's exactly how dry it's been. Very few surplus amounts, basically one place over in far east central Oklahoma as we look over there at Sapulpa in that area. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Dr. Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, any big changes with crop prices this week?
Well, crop prices were up a little bit this week, but I don't think there's any big changes. You look at wheat, about 40 cents, $9.25 up to $9.65. I think we've got the drought problems that's impacting prices, and of course things that's going on in the war in Russia and Ukraine. If you look at corn, we had somewhere around a 15-cent price increase. I think if you look at the corn harvest, about 20% done. No surprises there. If you look at soybeans, going from $13.30 up to $13.70, what, about 40 cents there. Little price move, but when you got $13.50 beans or $13.70 beans, 40 cents is just not very much. And the cotton, now cotton was volatile, but not big moves. It started out at 84, went up to 88, is back down to 83. So move it in the mid 80s on that futures contract, and you can take about 3 cents off of that to get to Oklahoma prices.
Have there been any changes in the market situation?
Not really. I think slowly we've got to where we are. You look at the drought, and of course we're watching that closely. We need a rain around. We've got relatively tight stocks, especially for wheat. You get into corn, they're tight domestically, a little less in the world situation. Soybeans real tight with the U.S. To ship a container from Asia to the United States was $19,000 a container. You come into January, it was down to $14,500. Now it's $3,900, an 80% decline in the cost to transport something from Asia to the United States. And I think that should help our prices come down. And of course, the market's watching the war.
Let's talk about that war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. How is that impacting things here in the U.S.?
Well, it's impacting prices all over the board. You look at Russia, they were the #1 wheat exporter. Wheat, 19% of world wheat exports. They were the #1 natural gas exporter. You look at their oil, #2. Your nitrogen fertilizers, 15% of world exports. Phosphorus fertilizer, 19%, potassium, 14%, big player in the market. Ukraine didn't have the inputs, but they were 10% of the world's wheat exports and 14% of corn exports. So that's a big, you mess up the supply of those products and commodities, you got problems with prices.
How does the current economic situation impact farmers and ranchers here in Oklahoma?
It makes their decisions a lot tougher. There's so much uncertainty in the market. You've got relatively high input prices. You've got relatively high output prices, but you've got uncertainty on those prices. They could fall down to 6 for wheat, be up to 13. And then you've got the production, you've got the drought situations. There's so much uncertainty in the market, and they've got to make decisions anyway, and it just makes it tough.
And I'm sure you and your colleagues will be talking about all the uncertainty at next week's Rural Economic Conference.
Not only will we be talking about the Oklahoma commodities and production, we have guest speakers that's going to come in and talk about the United States and world economic situation.
Okay, Kim, thanks a lot. And it's not too late to register for the conference. For information, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Well, in recent weeks, we've talked about a lot of topics that help us address and deal with drought and the continued high heat that plagues cattle and cattlemen across Oklahoma. Our title this week is Preparing for Winter. It's hard to believe as we tape out here in early October and it's still pretty warm that winter is just around the corner. But we're going to address things that are always important going into winter, and this particular year probably have a little more significance in certain cases. First thing we address is water. Water is the most important of our classes of nutrients. A clean and abundant water supply is absolutely critical. As we get into the freezing temperatures of winter, very low ponds are more subject to freeze over. And whatever we need to do to secure we've got ample water supply for winter, now is the time to be taking action and figuring out what that needs to be. Second topic of discussion is securing our winter hay and feed supply. We are critically short of growing days, and even if we receive some moisture at this point, the reality is the forage base we have on hand right now is the forage base we're going to have to go through the winter. Hay is already scarce. Prices, I would anticipate, while already high, are going to get higher as we move into the winter months. There are some programs to assist with trucking expenses on hay if we can secure some in other states that are worth checking with your local FSA office about. But the reality is we need to deal with the forage base we have and have those winter hay supply and feed demands met at this point, or be getting them taken care of in short order. If we don't have ample grass or hay, the third thing we address is that we're going to have to eliminate cow inventory or cull cows. Cow culling has been covered in recent weeks on Cow-Calf Corner. We can refer back to that in past newsletters or YouTube channels where that's available. But also the potential, as hard as it is to believe, there are parts of the country that have received moisture and have got some forage and grass. It may be possible to ship your cows into other regions, have some custom grazing done, and bring them back a few months later. If that is the case, I tell you to be aware of the trucking bill. With shipping costs being what they are right now, the shipping costs may exceed the actual cost of grazing. If you look at that, but eliminating some cow inventory may be a dire necessity at this point in the year as you assess your own ranch operation. Fifth thing we get to, also covered recently in Cow-Calf Corners, is just monitoring body condition on cows. If you've got cows that are thin right now as you wean, having lived through the summer that we've been through in Oklahoma, you may not want to put the feed resources into them, but now is the time to do it. It's more easy for those cows to recapture flesh when they're dry and get to an adequate body condition level prior to calving. And if we get that done right now, it's going to pay dividends on the breed back and the reproductive efficiency that we see going into next spring on our cow herds. I hope this helps, and thanks for joining us this week on Cow-Calf Corner.
More now on the subject of drought. Our OSU Extension fire ecologist John Weir says these lingering conditions will likely increase the chance of wildfires this fall and winter.
So, you know, the fire risk is getting pretty great, or it has been and continues to be pretty great, and it's going to get worse because we are now going at least into the dormant season. So everything's senescing out. We're not too far away from our first freeze throughout most of northern Oklahoma, so that'll put most all the vegetation definitely dry. We're also, again, you know, even though we're extremely dry, we're getting into the driest time of year. You know, winter, December, January, and February are definitely the driest months. So the potential for wildfire is just increasing greatly with every day. So, you know, again, with hay being at a premium and also, you know, not available much, we got to protect what we've got. And so the things that I would recommend for protecting hay from wildfire issues or for potential things that can come up, again, don't store it all in one spot. Spread your hay out so it's in multiple areas. So that way, if a fire does come, it's not impacting all that you have. Secondly, make sure that the areas that you store the hay I would be looking for areas that are bare ground. Make sure you have all your equipment cleaned off from the year. So again, hay equipment, mowers, shredders, things like that may have a big accumulation of debris and flammable debris that's piled up on them that embers could start and burn that equipment with. You know, clean that stuff off. You know, get everything cleaned up around your outbuildings and homes. Keep everything mowed short. Trim up any flammable trees or anything that are close by so that the fire could go underneath it. Make sure, like on your outbuildings and stuff, let's keep the doors and windows always shut. So again, that way if a fire does occur, you're not around. Embers aren't going to fly into the building, potentially set anything on fire, things like that. You know, everybody needs to think about long beforehand, if insurance is an issue or a thing, check and see what your coverage is. You know, it may be, you know, a lot of times it's not real expensive to up your policy to get greater coverage, because you need to make sure that you've got coverage for what you have. On doing that, also have an inventory of what kind of equipment, things that you have in your barns and your shops and your home, in case, you know, something would happen. You need to do that beforehand, because it's hard to ever get that, remember everything that you've ever had. So again, take that inventory, take photographs, take videos of all that stuff so you have a record of everything that you have, so that way, in case something does happen, you have that record and you've got that proof. You know, again, keep receipts and things like that. Again, keep those in a safe place. Again, also, think about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it long before that fire ever comes, and that's the biggest issue.
Continuing the discussion on wildfires, don't forget about the upcoming OK Fire workshops. The annual workshops will be held in a virtual format over Zoom, spanning 2 consecutive afternoons in October, November, and December. OK Fire is our statewide weather-based decision support system of the Oklahoma Mesonet for wildland fire management with applications to wildfire, prescribed fire, and smoke. These events will have a combination of presentations, website demos, and of course, question and answer periods. For more information about these workshops, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
This morning I'd just like to give you a brief update on high-path avian influenza. As of October 3rd, the United States has lost 46+ million birds to the virus. We've seen 228 commercial flocks be infected and 256 backyard flocks infected. The USDA's Wildlife Service has been monitoring along the Red River and has found several birds infected with the virus. So this is really an important wake-up call for all of the commercial and backyard poultry producers to remember, keep following your biosecurity protocols. Do all you can to prevent any contact of your birds with wild birds. Don't feed wild birds around your flocks. Don't let them have the same access to a water supply. As far as you're concerned, keep your distance from other poultry producers. Try not to loan any equipment out. If you're going to do that, make sure it's clean and disinfected before you use it. The last thing I would say is be sure you know the clinical signs of high-path avian influenza. Normally we're going to see respiratory signs, sneezing, coughing, discoloration, or swelling of the combs, the wattle, the head, and the feet, the legs. I would strongly suggest that anyone that sees a high number of sick birds or a high number of deaths get in contact with our state veterinarian or your veterinarian, or contact your Oklahoma State University County Extension office. For more information about high-path avian influenza, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
As we close today, another reminder that you can receive discounted forage and water testing through your OSU local county extension office between now and the end of the year. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.